A podcast isn't just talking, but with the barriers to entry so low with starting a podcast, there are so many out there where talking is just all they're offering. But if you want to stand out and get results from your podcast, there are certain essential elements that you need to make that happen. In this episode, I'm joined by Vince Quinn, host of It's Not Just Talking, where he helps business owners generate leads through their podcasts and not just downloads. And in this episode, we're covering the biggest mistake that podcasters are making that's stopping their listeners from taking the next step, how to ask your listener to take action without feeling salesy, the metrics that podcasters should be tracking, why podcasting still isn't oversaturated and how to capitalise on it, does AI have a place in podcasting, and much more. So if you want to make sure that your podcast isn't just talking and it's getting the results that you want from it, then keep listening. Vince Quinn, thanks for joining me on Podcasting Amplified.
Thanks for having me on Podcasting Amplified.
You're very welcome. So I just wanted to ask, what's the most common mistake that you see podcasters making when it comes to getting their listeners to take that next step, whether it's visiting their website, buying a product, booking a call with them? What are podcasters generally getting wrong that you see?
One is literally mentioning that people can do that. It doesn't always happen as much as you think. I've had different people who are professionals that have done so many, like dozens of episodes, and I'll listen through it and they won't even say their full name. They'll just be like, "Hey, I'm Dave, and this is the show." And it's like, Dave who? It's just, yeah. So people tend to bypass the basic information of who they are, what they do, how they help people, and then throughout, it's finding those artful ways to not just mention it, but make it easy. Like the other thing is just making whatever your main call to action is, just make that the first thing that people see when they go into the description. They go check out your show, they go to the show notes, like bang, it's right there. And think about how simple that is. Like for example, on my show, it's really, I mention who I am up front, what the company does, and then let's say 10 minutes into the show, something like that, I'll say, hey, and we have a newsletter. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. It's the first thing in the show notes. And there it is. Like I want to make it as simple A to B as possible. And it's just that one call to action. I guess that's the last part of it, is not making it this thing where, hey, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook and I've got a phone number. And like, if you go to this bar on Tuesday nights, I tend to be there. I'm doing Quizzo. Come on by. It's just, give them one thing in that moment to go and do, make it easy for them to go and click that link. Any work they have to do, the harder it's going to be.
And why do you think people don't do that, basically? Do you think it's just knowledge around it? Do you think they sort of get in their head about, they shouldn't be selling themselves? Or what do you think is causing that?
Yeah, it's definitely both of those in a very strong sense. I think a lot of times people, especially like a smaller solopreneur kind of business owner, you're so focused on just like the craft of what you do and executing that and managing your clients and thinking about that pipeline of how am I consistently getting people in. It's not one of those things that always happens. And so that's a real struggle. So people on that sense aren't always thinking about, how is this actually drawing people in? They know the value of the podcast is getting out there and it's getting attention and it can lead to leads, but they don't really think about the actual steps that need to be in place for that to happen. So that is part of it. And then the other side is absolutely an allergy to sales. I mean, I had it for a very long time. It wasn't fun. Everything was sales for me. So like, I watched The Simpsons all the time growing up as a kid. There's old Gil on The Simpsons who's like this really desperate old guy selling used cars and accordions and stuff door to door. Like it's, and I looked at that, I'm like, I don't want to be that. And on the other side, I thought like, if you've ever seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jordan Belfort, like total slime ball. I mean, it was kind of like that is what I saw. So yeah, I didn't want to be that. I think a lot of people have those kinds of stereotypes around sales. And so to introduce, hey, I have this newsletter, or I do this free session, or here's this thing that I'm selling. It's a limited offer for the first 3 people that sign up. Like they just don't want to do that because it feels wrong because they're not comfortable and confident doing it. So I totally get that. Like there's a lot to unpack with the psychology of sales and everything that goes into being comfortable, but it's definitely a major obstacle because if you don't want to sell, you just hope that trust will eventually get people to fall over the finish line.
No, it's interesting. And just sort of staying on that for a bit, because even if anyone listening, if you don't have a business that you're using your podcast to market, like there's still going to be something you would like your listener to do. If you're growing a podcast, whether that's joining your email list or whatever that is. So yeah, I mean, I've been working on this as well, like yourself. I think everyone struggles with that selling piece at the beginning. A mentor of mine, I know, because you talked about like Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, and those kind of people is what people think when they think of selling, or convincing. But this mentor of mine, he referred to Simon Squibb. Do you know Simon Squibb?
I don't know Simon Squibb.
So he goes around a lot in the UK, in London, and he often carries like a load of cash in his pocket, basically. And he's this really down to earth guy, and he basically asks people, "What's your dream?" And they tell him about whatever their dream is, and he often gives people cash to get started and gives people some advice on how to get started in that. So if you think of your offer like that, then you won't feel salesy because you know that you're going to give loads of value. So if people can reframe it like be more Simon Squibb than Jordan Belfort, it'd probably make it easier.
Yeah, I think that's totally the way to go about all of this. It's like you're helping people. That was the thing that singularly refocused the entire way I viewed about sales is I am helping people. And especially like when you are the business owner and you started this for the sake of, you're really good at this and you want to help people. So you're going to build your life on it, your entire income on it. You're helping people out. So how exciting is that to be in a situation where you can find people that actually need what you do and be able to help them do it? And so that's the thrill that I've taken from it. And it's really changed the entire approach because now I don't feel icky about things. It's also, I know better when it's appropriate to pitch, right? Because it's like, okay, they do have these issues. What I have can actually help this person. Here's the ways that it can. So now it's like, oh no, this is going to be good for you. And I can go into that being honest, being confident, having belief in my skills and my abilities, my experience, and how it really connects with them. And it just makes everything so much simpler.
Yeah. If anyone's listening thinking, well, I don't have, as valuable offer as that, as what Vince is saying or what Simon Squibb is offering, then make a different offer. Like either what you're giving away is really valuable, like you're giving away something really useful on your email list or whatever, in which case it'll be worth convincing people, or it's not valuable, in which case you should probably, rethink what you're offering, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%, right? I think it's a great reality check. If you really are deep down going, well, I don't think this is actually going to help anybody, then yeah, why are you selling it? You know what I mean? Like, how do you adapt to this in a way that you do feel confident? And I've been there too. Same thing. Like, I've had times where I'm like, I don't know. I mean, podcasting's changed so much. Like, I've been doing this from a business side for 5 years now. Think of where the industry was in 2020. I mean, it's a whole different world. Like video was just kind of sort of becoming a thing, and like everything's changed dramatically. So yeah, there's been times I've had to look at what we do and go, you know what? We need to have this other part of our offer. We need to make expansions here or there, or represent the value in a certain way, because that's what people truly want and need. And when you don't have that sense of confidence, it's a great indicator. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's all evolution. You just have to acknowledge it and be willing to improve. So use that to push yourself.
Yeah, love it. I know we were on that for quite a bit of time, but I think it's important for people because it definitely holds a lot of people back. Is there anything else that you think is holding people back from taking that next step? I know one thing you often talk about in your podcast is like focusing too much on downloads. I don't know if there's anything else that comes above that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to dive into that from just the philosophical side of, because people tend to look at this of, okay, I'm creating the podcast and I'm doing this to grow my business. And so with that, I need to get downloads on the podcast, which is a very simple and rational thought. I don't blame anybody for viewing it that way. It makes a lot of sense. And based on how traditional podcasts have worked, that is the formula. You need downloads to get sponsors. That's how you make your money. But when you think about it from this other side of, okay, you have a product to sell, you have a service to sell, and your whole goal is to build relationships with the right kind of people, earn their trust, and convert them into customers, then what you need is visibility. And it's where are all the places that you're putting the show. That's the value of a podcast, is like, I would rather die than be on Instagram every single day. I don't like it. I don't want to be there. I don't want the habit of it. Same thing for like TikTok, Facebook, really anything else. I don't want to be on social media, and generally I don't post there at all. So with that, it's like, okay, well now I can get this show and we can create clips from that show and we can, repurpose things, carousels, whatever. Like you can do all of that stuff just through the show, and being able to do that so simply and then see how your reach is growing on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, like all these different places with very little effort to create the additional content for it. I mean, what a gift. And then when you realize, yeah, okay, my audience has grown collectively over all these places, and the podcast is the engine that's driving that to all of those places, then to me, that's a podcast number. There might be some people that don't agree with that, and that's okay. But I think from the true business side of it, and even if you were a show that was built on entertainment, wouldn't you want to monetize on massive views if you were getting that on Instagram and TikTok and anywhere else? Like there's value in that, and everybody knows that. So I don't know why we don't tend to naturally incorporate those numbers. It might be a thing that's just harder to track, so people don't always monitor their social profiles in addition to the way that they look at their podcast numbers. Like, and something to consider as well for people is how to do that. But when you start to monitor those things and go, yeah, how is my collective reach growing? It just totally changes your perspective.
Yeah. I guess it really comes down to like what your goals and strategy are. Like I have some clients, they want to grow their YouTube channel. That's the main thing, and why they have the podcast, and it's working for them. So views are a really big thing with YouTube. So is retention rate, how long people are watching the videos and things like that. So they're going to be the most important. But yeah, if you want to grow in a different way, or you want to be converting listeners to leads, then that's a different metric to track.
Yeah. And for me, it's like I'm mostly working with businesses. So I'm going in with them and saying, listen, yeah, if you're getting all the YouTube views, great. Like hey, let's go get them if we can. And what are things that we can do to optimize the way that those things are searched? Like that's definitely something that we're actively researching and developing now as we continue to get better with all this. So like how are ways to naturally do all of that with the content that's already being generated? But ultimately, I'm going to them and saying, hey, if you've got a single client that you can sell that's going to make you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year, then I don't care whatever you get with those downloads. The sponsorship money is coming nowhere close. That ad revenue is nowhere close to the kind of haul that you're going to get. And so let's really focus on that. And you can do that if you have 25 people that listen to your show and 100 people that are on your newsletter. And you know what I mean? So it's just like, let's build that, target that. And we want the numbers, but they'll come in time, and we've just got to appreciate that whole picture.
Yeah, like I know what you're saying. Like I've got another client who signed a deal, a 30 grand deal on his second episode because he got the right guest in. So it was nothing to do with the listeners. So, and that was before we even launched. So he literally didn't have one listener, and it paid for the first year of production. And I know that doesn't happen for everyone. In that particular situation, it's a guesting strategy. So downloads didn't really matter. But then there will be people, and that's fine if you don't have that goal, that it is more about spreading the message as far and wide as possible, and leaving a legacy and things like that, in which case that just reach is more important to you.
Yeah, I would be curious just from that standpoint of like, are there certain people you've worked with in that space that are really leaning into that side of it? Because like for me, it's been a lot of coaches and consultants, so I've just been pretty much in the mindset of like, this is my playbook and this is what we run. But I would be genuinely curious of like some of those people where it is like, hey, let's go get that reach and get the word out like that.
Yeah, I mean, one client they have a successful business. He's been running it for probably a couple of decades now. And the podcast is kind of like a side project to that. It's around the same topic. It's around design, but he's not trying to get leads to his graphic design agency. It's more about, he just loves it, and he wants to build his personal brand, and he wants to leave a legacy. And there is, monetization that's now starting to come out of it in different ways in terms of merchandise and, paltry amount of ad revenue. But, a lot of people, I think, when they get to a certain point with their business and they end up selling up, they want to do, more consulting or personal brand type things, and having that podcast there just in front of a lot of people can help with that.
No, getting on stages or, like there's so many things. If you wanted to write a book someday, to be able to just start ripping podcast episodes and see where it goes, like that aspect I do think is real in the sense of like testing the message too, right? Like that's where the numbers can be valuable. If the stakes aren't the same and it's not really like business marketing, okay, well then take some risks, take some shots, like see where the message is landing. And really, regardless of the show approach, like what's the stuff that did well? I mean, it's just interesting to go back after 3 months, 6 months, a year. Like my show actually, as we're talking now, it's really almost exactly a year old. And so we're now starting to go through that process of, okay, well, let's look at the data from the past year and what are some of the best posts that we had? What are some of the best episodes that we had? Why was it with those things? What messages are hitting and how should we adapt that based on those numbers? And like, that's how we're incorporating it, but it's still with that goal of, we got to sell, So it's been that interesting balance, but obviously you have to build up the catalog a bit to be able to get good reference points for it.
Yeah, for sure. There was another note that I made. You were talking on one episode about business owners saying that their niche is too saturated, and I wanted to jump on that because it's something that I hear a lot about. Whether are you talking about in terms of if a business owner is thinking like, should I even start a podcast to begin with, or have I missed the boat, or whatever? Talk a little bit more about your thoughts on that and why you think it's not the case.
The conventional wisdom seems to be that there's so many podcasts out there and millions of them are getting made every year. And so, what's the point of me even starting a show? And there's every point to start a show. I mean, especially if you're a business, because the whole thing is like, you can advertise everywhere. Everybody's running ad campaigns. Do you say there's too many advertisements? It's not worth advertising? Like nobody's ever going to say that. It's a crazy thing to say. You might as well say we don't have. What's the point of having a website? Everybody has a website. There's too many websites. Like you need to have your own space for yourself, your own ecosystem for yourself. And this is one of those ways to do that. So if you're somebody that is conversational, that likes to communicate in this kind of way, you've got good contacts or looking to build contacts and get them on the show and get the benefits of those relationships. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Because you don't need the downloads. Like you said, I mean, that story of somebody signing for $30K before they released is absolute gold. But I think that's exactly the point. It's like, it doesn't matter. That's not, it's the wrong mindset going in. And that is the most chronic problem that goes on in podcasting is everybody is thinking they need to be this traditional entertainment, numbers-based show when we're talking about branded podcasts. Like that is a totally different game. It's for a business. It's for driving that in. It's for supporting your marketing, supporting your sales in whatever way you need to do that. And so, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like it just doesn't matter. And you can still climb because the other side of it is, let's say, okay, I'm hosting a show currently that's about B2B marketing. And it's B2B sales. Typically, it's businesses with at least 10 full-time employees or larger. This is a newer project that I just got involved with. But it's been around for a couple of years. And so they have longevity. My job is to make that show as good as it can be. And I'm competing. Like, hey, there's other shows in the market, sure, but how much better is this show? How much better can I make it? How do I get the word out so that people know that this is the better show? And so the business behind it sees the benefits. Like, it's okay to compete as well, but the competition is smaller than you think. The people willing to stay in it is low. And so that's opportunity. Like when you're not thinking about, how do I get the biggest numbers? But how do I build an effective niche in my space where people who could be my ideal client can come across this and see me as the go-to person versus my competition? Then why wouldn't you want that? Like, but that's the thing is everybody's just thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to get all this money to get sponsors, so it's not even worth trying. And like, it's not their fault. It's not their fault to think that way. Because people are, your average person is just so inundated with podcasts and they do come and go and they've probably started one and did it for 3 episodes and then got rid of it and never did it again and said it stinks. Like all that stuff around it is valid. But when it comes to being what truly matters, where can people get value for themselves? Yeah, branded shows. I mean, I've bet my life on it. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. And just for the listener, like, because they've obviously already started their podcast, but they might still have these concerns like, is my podcast not growing because the niche is too small? But yeah, I mean, what you're saying, I completely agree. It's like, how many good podcasts are there in your niche? Because sometimes, we'll get or speaking to a prospect and, they'll talk about, oh, there are hundreds of other podcasts in this particular niche. But then you look, right, what percentage of those are active? Maybe 25%. What percentage of those ones are actually, packaged nicely and have a high value density in them? And then it gets to the point where you're only really competing with maybe 2 or 3 other podcasts in your niche.
100%. And so that's the beauty of it. And then it's okay, well, is your content better? What are the differentiators between just your overall philosophy and vision versus the way that they go about it? I mean, there's so many different nuances to the ways that people that are in the same space are going to focus on, how they can help you. So yeah, you just got to make sure you're differentiating the right ways. You're providing a better product. And if it's to the point where you're like, okay, well, my business might be too niche that there's not really an audience for it at all, then yeah, maybe that's a business issue. And that's what I think is part of the most fascinating and in a sense rewarding part of all of this is when you get to build a show, especially for me, it's me and one other guy. I have a business partner. We do the show together. We run everything together. It's a total in tandem lockstep kind of thing. And it gives us opportunities as stuff is happening with the show to reflect on our business and how we're operating and are we doing things the best way and how should stuff be done and what does our market look like and are we thinking about it the right way and talking to the right people. It's such a reflective exercise for just the overall business health and strategy in addition to the show strategy because they are so tightly tied together. So yeah, we're always adjusting or questioning and prodding at different questions, but it makes us better. And so yeah, for some people, maybe it is too small and you have to make its change. But if the show helped you do that, I mean, what a relief.
Yeah. I mean, if your niche was too small to even sell to, then yeah, there's a bigger issue there. It kind of makes me think of because when you said about the ads piece, people don't say there are too many ads, so we're not going to advertise. And it's the same with things like blogs and YouTube. I feel like they're already so big that it's big enough that it's just oh, you have to have a blog, you have to have a website, you have to have a YouTube channel. But podcast is kind of in that space where it's not brand new, so you don't have loads of people saying, oh, we got to get into this before it gets big, but it's not so big that it's become completely normal or mainstream to have a podcast yet. So it's kind of in the middle where people are still thinking, it's too late now, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's great in that sense, right? Because you can get that long-term value still. I mean, there's going to be something to be said for, hey, I have this show, I stuck with it. I've got 8 years worth of content down the line when somebody walks in the door. And how much easier it's going to be for you from a marketing side as well to have 8 years of content that you've previously made and know what your best stuff is and be able to recycle that or update it or whatever else. It's crazy value. And for the people who are willing to jump on this now, yeah, if you're getting slow growth in whatever that way is, right? Because it's again, we're always talking about these big numbers, but hey, if you jump from 20 listeners to 25 listeners on average per episode in a year, that's a 25% increase. That's pretty damn good. And if you're doing that for years and have these dedicated people for years, and you're seeing that on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on YouTube, in your newsletter, it just compiles in such a great way. And again, if it's not, you get that reflection, but to stick with it, knowing that other people are going to come and go, there's going to be other competing trendy things that people hop on. It's just, this isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to change in some way, but it's not going to go anywhere. And so as far as owning this thing and the value of it, you can't beat it. I mean, how many people are on YouTube and well, the ad changed a little bit, so now I'm getting a tenth the money I used to, and I got to find a new thing to do. Or they shut down my channel, and it's okay, well, this show is on every platform imaginable, basically, and that's the value of a podcast. It's just a safe bet.
Yeah. So I guess the overall message is keep going. Don't stop because it is growing, and these companies like Netflix and that, they're starting to add video podcasts to their platform. So before it gets to that YouTube level where there's 100 million or however many 9-figure amount of channels there are, podcasting will probably start getting to that at some point in the future. So we're still kind of early.
Yeah, and even from that standpoint too, like I came from sports radio. That was my background before I got into all of this. So like common sports cliche is getting 1% better every day. And if you're doing that now and you're making those small investments now, like this setup I've got here, I mean the camera, the microphone, the lights on the floor, I've got ring lights on each side of me, like all these things were added over time. It was piece by piece, and like it looks pretty good now, but it took years to really get all of this. And so it's like, yeah, how do you apply those kinds of things to your show? And that's the beauty of sticking with it too, is like, yeah, like you get to innovate essentially the more you stick around, because you'll have been around longer with more experience and have all of that 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And how can you push things? How can you really stand out and make noise?
Yeah. I'm just curious, how did you start out with in the podcasting space? I know you said you're in sports radio. How did that move on to podcasting? And then, because this podcast is only about a year old now, isn't it? But you've been in the space for longer.
Yeah, I've been in the business for about 5 years now, truly. So what happened was 10 years in sports radio. I was working in podcasts and on podcasts during that time. It's how I got on the air, because I like had reps podcasting and I got my bosses to listen to it. So they needed a guy in a pinch. I got that opportunity. Things went well, and I had a career there for a while. But I was looking at where that industry was going, and I was like, I need to get the hell out of corporate radio. This is not a good place to be. So I left, and then when I really started in the business, I was running a local studio in Philly, and I was dealing with all of these other local shows that were trying to build an audience and be the next big thing and get sponsorship dollars and all that stuff. And I just saw how difficult it was. And especially from the standpoint of like, they were paying us to build the entertainment property, and they didn't always have the full commitment from the 3 guys that would be on the show, or they didn't have a good direction of like a thing to sell and didn't have an audience. So when you're paying up front a lot of money for that kind of production, like it got hard. And it was one of those things where we just had to start naturally pivoting, and it was survival. Like we were going out of business fast, and I was going to be back in radio really fast if we didn't make dramatic changes. And so it got to a point where, yeah, we just had to start leaning into the businesses. It just made a lot of sense. They have money, they have something to sell. How do we leverage it that way? And eventually I ended up closing the studio that I managed, like the in-person space, entirely. So now I don't own a physical studio space. There's no point. Like I've got this here. This is my home apartment. This works out great. I've got clients that are co-working spaces, so I've helped them set up studios for their members, and I get to use those when I need to. And otherwise, I mean, yeah, everybody's recording at home, or they want to set up at their office. We help them do all of that, but it's a complete 180. I mean, because yeah, we went from in person with all these people at a studio space for entertainment to pretty much anywhere virtually for businesses. Like it's been a crazy 5 years.
Yeah, I've seen it too. Like, I used to work in recording studios, and yeah, it's all my work is remote now, pretty much. But yeah, it does beg the question, like, what is the place? Like, what place do studios have? Because people still want, that high quality recording, and that which they may not be able to figure out how to do at their home or office, and it kind of makes a big difference as well. Like if a podcast is, you can see it's been recorded in a professional studio, it does make a big difference. But for the purpose of a lot of our clients, that probably isn't really a necessity, is it? And not really possible. But luckily there are still some studios out there, because I think there is still a space for them.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, because I'm with you in terms of the quality of studio spaces, and for the people who have the skills to run that with the multiple cameras, and now you get all these gorgeous backdrops, and you can get it, all things considered, at like a reasonable rate. The tough thing is, I think it's more of a marketplace issue, in terms of a lot of times studios seem to be aiming for the lower, smaller business, the small rate to get people in the door. And I get that, but the problem is you're chasing those people. A lot of times they don't have the business side developed with it yet. And so even if you get them in, it might be once or twice. And then they're like, oh man, this really is piling up, even though I like how this looks. Like that's the things that I've seen talking to studio owners, seeing them close, being a part of studios, closing mine. There's a lot of things like that. And so I don't know. I mean, on some level, I think it's high level clientele. Like it has to be an absolute VIP experience with some place that's happy to lock in and do that on a longer contract, 6 months, a year, using it more for your own purposes. Like that's part of why we kept our studio open as long as we did, was we did our own show there. It was me and my business partner. And so we thought, okay, well, if the expense of all of this is really to run high level marketing for us with our program, and then we can essentially subsidize the cost of that a little bit with getting a few people to come in and record their shows there, however few that might be, then great. And like we broke even essentially for a while, and that was fine. But that's not good when that is the business. You know what I mean? So it's a really hard place to be, and it's hard to get people out of the home because the quality's good. And if you make that same investment for 3 days in studio, like you can get a really badass setup in your house. And it's a tough question. That's why I got out of that business.
Yeah, I think it's just finding the balance, isn't it? I know some of the listeners, they either do video content as well, so YouTube, or they're considering it. And obviously if you had a nice expensive studio space, that's going to make it a little bit more worthwhile, and it's going to help increase engagement on YouTube and all these things versus just an online call. I mean, I know I'd love to be able to record this in a studio, but at the same time, I'd be very limited on who I could interview then because it's all location based.
Yeah, and that is a funny thing too then, right? It's like, hey, I'm in this gorgeous studio, and I've done these occasionally where it's like you're in this nice studio space and you're recording, but then you've got the headphones on and you've got to have the person on a monitor, and like their quality versus yours can be so dramatically different. And on some level, then what's the point, right? Like it's just, you might as well meet people where they're at and make the most of it.
What do you think about audio versus video podcasting? Do a lot of your clients do both? Do you still think that there's a long way to go in terms of audio podcasts still being relevant? Because I do hear people say, like, is there any point doing an audio podcast anymore? I think there is for sure, but I know a lot of people feel like just seeing all these, high level, high performance podcasters in expensive studio spaces, they feel like you just have to do that now as well.
Yeah, everybody that I work with, at minimum, it's an audio show with video clips. So even if they don't want to have the audio, the video edited, well, we're getting video. Like people don't watch audio on Instagram. They just don't. So YouTube Shorts. So it's like, so let's make it easy and let's have these video elements, which then require way less work to put together. It's pretty simple to do it. You don't have to worry about editing, uploading, managing your YouTube channel. Like it just removes some of the workload. So I'm always doing audio show with video clips. And then I think there's always going to be a place for video or audio rather, because people do genuinely love audio and the ability to create unique experiences in audio. There's absolutely value in it. It's never going to go away. I think it's always going to be around because, I mean, in the same way now, like radio has such a diehard history and culture to it that there's always people who will love that medium no matter what else pops up around them. And I think podcasting is just the next version of that. And so people want that audio element. They want to produce it. They want to make it. Like they want to just live in it. And so it is cultural. So yeah, I don't think it's going to change, but obviously all the platforms and advertising and so the messaging and like the rat race of it is pushing to video. So you have to be willing to consider it. I think you shouldn't shy away from it. But if it's an expense thing, if it's an interest thing, you genuinely don't want to do it. And especially if it's not like marketing for you, then if it's easier to just run it as an audio show, do it as an audio show, make sure you have the interest and figure it out from there.
Yeah, I think it does depend partly on the show. Like we have 1 or 2 shows where we're using a lot of sound effects, like Foley type stuff, where it's to give the listener that audio experience. And to make that work in video, you'd be basically filming a documentary. It would be a completely different project. So what we do for the shorts there is we use some B-roll and things like that, because I'm kind of experimenting with it at the moment, because there are, clips on Instagram and that where they're using a video footage of someone playing Minecraft or something, and they're just talking over it, and they do really well because they just keep the viewer locked in, even though it's not actually part of what's being said. So I think there is kind of ways around it, which I'm trying to figure out at the moment. Or you can just create completely separate video content. So if it's an audio podcast, but you want to grow the show using Instagram, then just create separate video content that is sort of perfectly tuned for that Instagram audience.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And like one of the things that's going to come up inevitably for those more produced shows is going to be people are going to fill those gaps with AI. Like it's going to happen,
Yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
only a matter of time. And I know like that's going to make some people shudder and spit, but like it's just going to happen if it's not happening already. So it's going to be curious to see how that fills in some of those gaps for like the super produced things and transitioning them to video. But still going to take a lot of work. Still going to be very time consuming. You know, who knows what the expense is going to be to get that kind of stuff done at the right way with the AI bots that are out there. So yeah, a lot of mileage with that. Like we'll see, but that's definitely going to be happening.
Yeah, while we're on that, because on this podcast we haven't really talked much about AI, and I'm sure that a lot of podcasters have, you know, looked into it or have heard about it and things. So it would be good to touch on that briefly before we kind of finish up, because we don't use AI for any video content because it just doesn't look good enough yet, and would never do something that just for the sake of saving time or whatever. But, you know, if something did come along over the next year or two that allowed you to turn audio clips into video and it just looked fantastic, and it was, you know, creating video following everything the speaker was saying and creating bespoke B-roll and things, like, why wouldn't you? If it's going to work and the host is up for it, then, you know, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's already at the point now where you can load yourself in like images of yourself into different bots, or you do like a minute or 2 minutes worth of footage, and then they're able to create a lot of dynamic things based on that. That's only going to get better. And so, yeah, it's inevitable. It's going to be fascinating to see how quickly it happens and how accessible it's going to be when it does. But yeah, that AI is going to change a lot of different things. I mean, we use it a little bit like Riverside, for example. So like we use Riverside for a lot of the stuff that we do. They've got AI built into like pretty much everything, to the point where if I wanted to, you know, if we were doing this conversation there, it'd be like we could export it where both of us look like Muppets, you know, like why not? So it's just such a funny thing. Like some of it's stupid and silly. Some of it's really valuable, like basic edits of things, generating clips and having some concept of like what a good clip is. It's not great. I'm totally with you on that. Like there's a lot of misses. There's a lot of artistic direction that's not there. But when you're somebody that's like, hey man, I just need to get this out there and it needs to look decent and my message is good, it's like this is all good enough, then it's good enough. Like AI is really good at good enough. And I think for a lot of people, for the cost and the time that they save, it's worth it. And so, you know, it's why more and more people seem to be investing in it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, there's definitely opportunity there, especially for people who are just starting out. I think that there is a little bit of a risk at the moment where some podcasters or some business owners who start a podcast and they don't really understand exactly what makes a clip, like, you know, what makes a great hook, what keeps people engaged, what gives people value at the end of the clip. And they're trusting these AI tools to do all that for them because they think that it's a little bit more advanced than it is. And really the AI is just kind of picking a sentence that sounds kind of like it makes sense, rather than getting a really good understanding of their ideal listener and, you know, cutting bits from different parts of the episode. Like it can't do all that stuff. So I think people still need to proceed with caution and realize there is like the barrier to entry is very low with podcasting. But when you compare, you know, if you look at a trailer for Diary of a CEO, for example, and some of the incredible things that some of these high-performing podcasts are doing, AI is not quite there yet without human intervention.
For sure. And that's it. You got to be specific about these things. And when you don't have that expert touch, like that's what we're here for, right? It's like, hey, get somebody who knows this stuff, cares about this stuff, can guide you and give you that direction that you need. Because, yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to manage all of this. It really is an art form in so many different ways. I mean, knowing how to approach intros and the branding of a show and how to design a topic and the calls to action stuff that we talked about earlier. I mean, there's a million things to it, but people are like, oh, well, it's just talking. It's fine, which is literally why I call my show It's Not Just Talking. Like,
of course.
It drives me crazy. So I was like, you know what? It's not just talking, and we're doing this. That's the show. It's not just talking. Let's just talk about how complicated all of this is. So yeah, get help, people. If you're looking at your AI clips and going, nobody seems to care about these. Am I wasting my time and my money? You might be. So you might want to call someone.
Yeah. I think just to finish up, that's a really good point. The name of your podcast, It's Not Just Talking, is so apt, especially when we're talking about how saturated a particular niche is, because again, those podcasts where it's just two people having a completely unscripted, unprepared chat, the first 5-10 minutes of it, they're just sort of chatting about their day or whatever. Like, that's not really competition, even if it's sort of within your niche, because those podcasts aren't really keeping people sticking around.
Nope. Yeah. So I will recommend this to people. I mean, Joe, you did it here, so I love it. It's just like, let's get right into it. When it comes to the interview point, like, we're just off to the races. Here's the question and get to it. Like, I do the same thing where it's like, hey, pre-record the intro, go get right into the show. So I love that. And it's not like, hey, Vince, can you just give us 20 minutes of your background? We just met you. Nobody knows who you are. But can you tell us your life story, please? And it's like, why does anybody care about this? Mm-hmm. I can't do it. So I totally love that and appreciate that as a guest, genuinely. But that's really what it's all about. It's like, I'm a perfectionist about a lot of different things, and I tend to get that out through the show. And I know there's other people who really care about what they're doing too. I mean, again, you're a solopreneur, you got this business, that's your life. And so, like, you really want to make this thing as strong as it can be, because you need to get that business to work. You need the show to work for you. So how do we do that? And that's all I think about.
So Vince, is there anywhere you'd like to send the listeners if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so easiest way to keep in touch, freepodcasthelp.com. Freepodcasthelp.com, 30-minute call. No commitments, no expectation, just here to help you out, diagnose problems, whether you've got an existing show and it's not doing what you need it to do, or you're looking to start a new show and you're just too nervous to go and pull the trigger. So freepodcasthelp.com. Look forward to talking to you there.
Awesome. Thanks again, Vince.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Podcasting Amplified. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. We'll be back next time with another conversation offering more insights to take your podcast to the next level and help you to achieve success. Happy podcasting.